Hello, and welcome to the Metta Hour podcast with Sharon Salzberg. I'm Lily Cushman. I produce this podcast, and we're returning today with another episode of our kids series, episode 276 on the Metta Hour. Today, Sharon is speaking with Sumi Loundon Kim. Sumi is the Buddhist chaplain at Yale University. She's a Harvard Divinity School graduate, and she's a founding teacher of the Buddhist Families of Durham, North Carolina. She's the author of several books, including Goodnight Love, a Bedtime Meditation Story. And Sumi's one of the first people we thought of for this kids series that we wanted to elevate her work in this arena. So if you're just joining us for this kids series, this is the 5th episode, and we're doing this in honor of Sharon's very first children's book, Karl, which was released on December 9th. It was written with the lovely Jason Gruhl, and it's an illustrated book for 4 to 8-year-old children. It's kind of an adaptation of Sharon's book, Lovingkindness. And it's been really fun bringing the book into the world. This series is kind of a way to just keep that conversation going, to really discuss the ways that meditation, mindfulness, loving kindness can support the adults who support small human beings, whether that's parents, family members, educators, social workers. There's so many people in the world that enrich a young person's life. And so we're looking both at how these tools can directly impact kids, but also those support systems. So in today's conversation, Sumi and Sharon start things off by talking about Sumi's early life in Zen community and her first visit to IMS, the Insight Meditation Society, at the young age of 16. And she shares about the value of having a spiritual practice during adolescence in particular. They go on to discuss some of the ways that meditation can be brought to kids, and one of those is through song, and some of the benefits of group practices for kids and for parents. They talk about working with the 5 senses, nurturing kindness and self-talk, creating a home as a sanctuary, and designating device-free family time. There's also some discussion about meditation for college students and the way that social connection can promote self-regulation. Sumi closes out the conversation with a Goodnight Love bedtime meditation. So we're excited to share Sumi's work with you and her wonderful perspective. Let's settle in and hear a conversation between Sharon Salzberg and Sumi Loundon Kim.
Hello, Sumi, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
It's wonderful to connect with you again. How are you, and where are you recording from?
I'm doing great. I am in southern Connecticut in Hamden.
Hamden is near New Haven?
It is, just north of New Haven.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it is a great joy to have you here as part of this series we're doing, which is in celebration of my upcoming children's book, Karl, who's a crocodile. You have published substantial children's content, inspiring families and young meditators. So I'm so grateful to hear your perspective today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
So you were raised in a Buddhist household, sitting in your mother's lap during her meditation sessions. And I wonder if you could share more about your path to meditation.
Right. Yes. So my parents were living in a Zen center in the 70s when I was born. And I was raised with Soto Zen all the way through age 9 or so. And then my dad got into Hatha yoga. So I learned that, and I learned that form of meditation as well. And when I was in my teens, my dad heard about the Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts, And so we went on a visit, and before I knew it, I was signed up for one of the 9-day retreats and then 2 teen retreats during the summer, the following summers. So I learned Vipassana and then Metta meditation from you, Sharon, way back when. And I carried that forward into college and beyond and into my parenting years.
So how old were you when you first came to IMS?
16.
Whoa, okay.
I'm 50 now.
The years go by. IMS is almost 50 as well.
That's right. Yeah. It's crazy.
So it seems that your early exposure to meditation laid the foundation for a lifelong practice. And it's such an important long-term view of our well-being and our development as people. So I'm wondering how your family's connection to meditation reflected in the home environment as you were growing up.
Yes, I think my experience was immersive. One doesn't get more exposure to meditation than living in a Zen center. So that's kind of the fullest version of exposing a kid to a life of meditation. And I've learned since then, however, that children don't need all of that in order to connect with meditation and have that be a part of their life. But I think being around other people who are meditating, other adults, other children, multi-generational undertaking, certainly gave me a sense that this was something important. And being around an environment where there was incense and the Buddha statue and silence was valued, left a pretty important impression on my mind. And so when I got to college and things got a little bit difficult, my family of origin went through a really hard time. I did find that early training and exposure was very supportive for helping me to work with my own stress, my own suffering, and it helped me to cope, to even see these difficult experiences as learning opportunities for growth. And I would also count as part of that support, knowing the staff and the teachers at IMS, Insight Meditation Society. And so having good spiritual friends was invaluable to helping me through some very difficult years in my 20s.
So as I mentioned before, the inspiration for this series is the publication of my first children's book, co-authored with Jason Gruhl, which is called Kind Karl, a little crocodile with big feelings. So it sounds like when you're describing that period of your life, there was some very big feelings.
Right.
The book is designed for kids who are 4 to 8 years old. Although I like looking at it, as an adult. And let's start with the big picture. Why do you think mindfulness practice is an important skill for kids right now?
Yeah, by the way, I just love this book. The illustrations are so touching, funny. I wish I had this book when I was a little kid and when my kids were little kids. So I'm so pleased that it's coming out. It's a wonderful narrative as well. Well, to answer your question, a few years ago, I was on a walk with a woman who had been a therapist for 20 years by that point, and she casually mentioned, I wish all children learned meditation, especially mindfulness meditation. And I said, oh, why is that? Is it because if they had learned mindfulness, they would be more adept at managing their emotions? Or is it because once they become adults, they have self-awareness, they understand emotions, and so they do their therapy better, they progress further in their therapy? And she said, both, but primarily, if the people she's working with now had learned mindfulness when they were young, they would have had more skill with their psychological world, and they wouldn't have gotten into some of the very difficult situations that now have brought them to therapy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that your approach to mindfulness is relational and inclusive, emphasizing love and belonging as essential aspects of spiritual life. So I'm wondering, what are your favorite tools for empowering young minds to practice loving awareness?
I have gotten this question many times from parents. Where do I start? And the answer is surprising. I think the best place to start is with storybooks. Um, Most of us, when our kids are little, have a small stack of books that we go through maybe every morning or every evening. And what I found in reading books that are, somewhat connected to this topic or to the spiritual life is that it was a great way of engaging my children. And then I would learn something as well. And being snuggled up with the child also puts all of that learning within a relationship and that kind of parental connection, that secure attachment. So that's where I would start. And then I think the second best way to bring some of these ideas to children is through music. Uh, some of the music for adults probably feels a little repetitive, maybe even a little annoying, but the kids will sing along, and the music helps to instill some of those lessons in their minds. I gave my sister a USB of all the meditation and Buddhist related songs that I had compiled over the years, and she played it for her 3 kids. And they would demand it every time they got in the van. They play the songs, Betsy Rose's songs, to the point where she pretty much could sing them herself, and she was going crazy. But that's such a fantastic way of doing it. And then the third valuable way of bringing this is through group settings, through community, or even just getting a few families together, because that social aspect makes all of this much more engaging. It highlights the value of it because multiple people are doing it, not just you as a parent. And it's also good for the parent. They get to connect with other parents who have similar aspirations for their families.
So for the adults who are listening, how does teaching mindfulness look different when working with a 4-year-old in comparison to a 10-year-old?
Yeah. So with a 4-year-old, they're not yet writing, and they probably might not have good control of scissors. So crafts and things like that are a little bit harder. So all activities and any kind of guided meditation needs to be very short and very simple. I think with young ones, the way we deliver this material is by working with their 5 senses. So kids remember most especially what goes in their mouth. I remember once visiting Washington, D.C. with my kids, and they saw these amazing sights, and someone later asked them, "So what do you remember about Washington, D.C.?" And they said, "Oh, we got lollipops." I was like, oh my goodness. So that just tells you how important the senses are for kids. So, mindfulness of eating something sweet like an M&M or a raisin if you want to be a little healthier. Having strong visuals, artwork, filled with color, candles, incense, music, the motions of the body. So any kind of like yoga or Tai Chi or the simple act of bowing, all of these are really powerful for young ones. And actually, they are equally powerful for the 10-year-old. And I work with Yale students who are now late teenagers and 20s, and they still like candles and incense and music and lush illustrations of the Buddha, etc. But with a 10-year-old, there's a lot more one can do with conversation, with having 10-year-olds and that roughly that age range talk about what they're learning with each other. So peer belonging and peer conversation is very helpful. They can do writing activities. The meditations can be longer. I would say like in the 5 to 8 minute range. They do need to be guided for both age groups. The voice of the teacher is very helpful. Otherwise, children tend to get a little restless or uncomfortable if it's too silent for too long.
Just like the rest of us. So instead of meditation being a rigid chore for young practitioners, I've been learning it's important to remember meditation as an alive system, feeling into our emotions, being allowed to notice joy as much as noticing difficulty. Of course, anyone who's tried to sit still with young kids knows it's not always peaceful. So what do you say to parents or teachers who feel discouraged when kids resist or get restless?
Yeah, we can have such a strong aspiration that our kids will be little Buddhas, and then it gets frustrating when they're the opposite. So it's important that everything is held very gently with a lot of warmth and friendliness, because if meditation gets paired with something disciplinarian or about control, then that will have a long-term effect, and the child will be less inclined to do it again. So I think we just have to allow the kid to be restless or to break from the meditation if they need to. This is why keeping the meditations very short can be helpful. Also, switching up the way we're teaching meditation. So maybe we have something with the breath, but then we would quickly shift to noticing how we're feeling in our body, or listening to sounds, or tasting a piece of fruit. So all of that, I think, helps sustain interest. And what we really want to aim for is not getting them to be good meditators, but just planting the seeds. We won't see those seeds ripen for many, many years later. But we just want to trust that having that exposure is sufficient. And there's also a lot of room for what I would call implicit learning, which is when you're meditating as the teacher or as the parent, even if you're guiding at the same time, the young one will see that you're holding your body still, that you're well regulated, that you are calm, and that you have a heart filled with peace, or at least you look like you do. And that, just being around that, is another level of learning. I suggest it's actually has a more profound impact than the explicit learning when we're teaching something directly. That will carry forward into their adult years in some really beautiful ways.
Let's zoom out to look at the family unit as a whole. You were a very early advocate for mindfulness for children and parents or caregivers, and now serve as Buddhist chaplain at Yale. So what are some of the recurring themes you've observed when supporting students and families?
Yes. One learning curve for me when I first started working with families is we thought that the program was primarily about teaching the children, and then we'd have the parents meditate, to occupy the time. And what I observed over time is that apples really don't fall far from the tree. And if the child was having a problem or some kind of issue, actually that could be traced back to the parent. The parent was usually struggling with something. And so as I understood more about implicit learning, how children essentially are formed by being around their parents in their mannerisms, their behaviors, the way they speak, and the many choices that they make throughout the day, that we would be better served by cultivating the practice of the parent rather than the child. And that as the parent matured, grew, changed, healed, etc., that had a beneficial effect on the child automatically. So by focusing more on the parent, I felt we would get more of a 2-for-1 deal. So you change the parent, you're also changing the child. And I got to see both in myself and with the other parents that I worked with that the way we were parented by our parents or caregivers, the people we were around, created an internal voice that we spoke with to ourselves, and that the way a parent speaks to themselves is played out in how they speak to their child. That then is internalized in the child, and as the child grows up, they have that parental voice within them. It sounds like their own voice internally, but it's been inherited from the parent. And so the real focus of transforming families is primarily around the parent working with their own inner voice, how they treat the parts of themselves. And the more that they could come into loving relationship with the parts of themselves that were wounded or felt lost or scared or abandoned or had been hurt in some way, that the more that they could repair that attachment internally, the better parents they were, and the more that they spoke to their own children in the kind of loving, clear, where sometimes we have to say things that create boundaries or let the child know that there's a rule or a limit, but it was clear and kind and truly in the interest of the child, coming from a compassionate place. So that's the primary takeaway for me in working with families.
Do you have any suggestions for ways that families can create and sustain a supportive environment, both in the home and from afar?
Yes, the very first thing I recommend, I'm sure many others would agree, is simply to have some times in the day when all devices are put away. That automatically boosts awareness of oneself and others by like 50% without doing anything. Just put the device away. So in our family, don't have devices at the meal table, whatever meal that is. Those are away. And that includes being in restaurants, unless we need to show a photo or, share a funny video, but then it goes away. A second way is to have some sacred objects around the house. I think it can be nice to have a dedicated area where there are maybe some beautiful, precious things, a statue, some incense, photos of people we love, pieces of nature. And then creating a home that can serve as a refuge so that when a child or anyone comes back to the household, it feels like a place where you can really relax, you can be yourself. It's warm, it's cozy, it's safe. And that, I think, communicates what we want when we are trying to teach meditation as well.
What have you seen in terms of a family dynamic shift and change when parents and children learn mindfulness together?
Yeah, I like to think of the family as our very first sangha. Sangha is the Buddhist word for community or spiritual community. So we can intentionally frame our family as a place for spiritual refuge and cultivation among each other in our relationships. And I also think it's powerful for children to see that their parents are continuing to cultivate themselves either through meditation or Buddhist practice or some kind of spiritual practice, because it tells the child in an implicit way, again, that that this is a lifelong journey, that we don't just grow up and we're suddenly perfect and never make any mistakes, but that we continue to keep an open mind and self-reflect and develop ourselves, that parents can be wrong and they can be aware that they're wrong and apologize and do better. This is such important modeling for children because it's easy for young people to get into a mindset of perfectionism. And then if they don't meet the expectations they think they're supposed to have, then that can have knock-on effects of low self-worth or shame. And those are pretty destabilizing, difficult states for anyone to have to deal with.
So you work with undergraduate and graduate students through Buddhist life at Yale University. And I would imagine some of them, at any rate, must come from families with meditation backgrounds. So what have you noticed about these students, and anything in particular jump out at you?
Yes, I've been a university chaplain for 15 years, and I have noticed an increasing number of students, to my heart's delight, casually mention, "Oh, my dad meditates," or, "Oh, I went on a meditation retreat with my mom." And they say it with some pride, I think. They like that, that their parents have pursued that. And my sense of the students who have parents or family members, sometimes it can be an uncle or an aunt or a grandparent as well, who have family members who've done that, is that these young ones are, there's a greater attunement. They seem to be more self-aware and they seem to be more other-aware. And they feel to me to be well-regulated and stable and calm. And so I really appreciate the role that caregivers have in cultivating the young adult that I now see coming into the meditation room at Yale. And I also get the sense that they are coming back to the practice not because of their parents directly. Their parents aren't saying, "Hey, you should go meditate while you're in college," but because they have a genuine, renewed interest of their own to learn more. So they had learned something as a child, but now they have an adult brain. You know, they have adult levels of learning, and so now they need to relearn meditation practice from that new brain that they're coming into college with. And so they have a lot of curiosity and interest, and they also already have a good sense of what it is, so they can fill in lots of gaps of what they don't remember or what they don't know.
Well, in a funny way, it's like a replication of your own experience, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like the idea so much of creating a shared awareness within a group, a family, a community. It feels like an antidote to the harrowing disconnection we can experience. And what are your favorite ways to inspire and nurture a shared awareness with the people you work with?
Great question. I find myself including in the guided meditation. So, often we'll say, become aware of the sounds around you, become aware of sensations in your body, become aware of your breath, your thoughts. And I include some awareness of the people around you, an awareness of being in this room, in this moment, and feeling the support of others practicing nearby. A lot of young people learn meditation on an app, and that's usually done alone. And when they come and do group meditation, which sometimes can be online, but it is live, but especially if they can do it in a room together, physically present, they often notice how different it is to meditate with other people versus meditating alone. So I like to elevate that in the instruction, something they're already feeling, and then to expand on that. I also talk to young adults about our new understanding of the nervous system and this amazing research on the way in which we're wired for connection, that our nervous system requires social connection in order to regulate. And so I think learning about that this is a deeply human need, helps them to pay attention to that part of their life and their practice. And I also now build in a meet and greet period before the meditation begins, so that as people are entering this new space, they get to know a few people around them, and that updates their nervous system that they are in a safe place with other people and they belong. And I think that helps people relax, and as a result, it helps them to meditate better.
Well, it's exciting also to see meditation serving a role in more institutions, especially serving younger minds as they balance navigating education systems along with the common stressors of life and sometimes the extraordinary stressors in life. If you could change one thing about how our society approaches education and mental health in young people, I'm sure there's more than one thing, but what would your priority be?
I wish that we would make emotional literacy our number one priority. I would love to have psychological fluency as a first language, to start that as early as possible. It's interesting. Mark Brackett came out with a book, Dealing with Feeling, Use Your Emotions to Create the Life You Want. And so the employee wellness program here at Yale did a special session with Professor Brackett because he's one of the professors here at the university. And the attendance broke Zoom.
Wow.
I think there was enough space for 400. And so that gave those of us working in this field a sense of how deeply needed this kind of education is. And that doesn't extend to the older generations. It's also needed in the youngest generations. It's interesting. Someone sent me a deck of feelings cards. It's typically used for children. And I, as an experiment, put it on the bookshelves in the meditation room just to see if any student would be drawn to it. And sure enough, within a week or so, someone had checked them out. And I asked the student about the cards. And they said that their therapist said they really needed to know what emotions were. They realized that they actually didn't even know how to name emotions at all. And they said that these kids' cards on naming emotions were very, very helpful. apparently on the front is the name of the emotion and then some kind of face that displays emotion, but on the back is more detail about the characteristics of that emotion. So that tells me that this work is really needed, even though we do have social and emotional learning in many school systems. We just need much more of it, and we need a sustained attention to it through high school. And so, like my friend Lisa, the therapist, I feel that if all children were getting this from an early age, we'd see fewer problems in the late teens and early 20s, and or we would see greater skill with working with the difficulties that we all encounter no matter what, the inevitable ups and downs of life.
So now that your kids are almost 18 and 20, I can hardly believe I'm even saying that. I thought if you bring them to visit in Barrie, I'd be one of those excruciatingly boring adults who said, I knew you when you were like a little baby. But now that they're almost 18 and 20, are there ways in which their early exposure to mindfulness and loving kindness meditation show up for them now that you can perceive?
Yeah, I think this is why I feel confident in saying that a little bit of exposure early on is planting seeds, and it'll show up a bit later in their lives, because now I'm seeing it with them, seeing these seeds get little sprouts. So my daughter ended up interning in a psychology lab that was looking for interventions to help people with alcohol and drug addiction. And one of the interventions is around mindfulness training. And she really got to see up close and personal that these things that she had learned as a kid really did help people work with their addiction more skillfully. And so I think having that exposure as a child just made her more comfortable with what she was learning in the lab. So that's a fairly specialized thing. But more broadly, she doesn't really do meditation now, although, let's see what happens in her late 20s and 30s. But she does love horses, and she loves to ride horses. And some years ago, she said, Mom, I don't really do meditation, but riding horses is my meditation. I can really feel how I need to be completely aware of my body and be completely aware of what the horse is doing, and how together we become rider and horse as one. And so she was able to recognize meditative elements, mindfulness elements in other experiences because she had some of that early exposure. And then for my son, what I've noticed with him is that he's very comfortable with silence, and not just because he's a late teen male, but that he enjoys silence. He's very happy just to go out and sit under a tree and listen quietly. He's done a lot of work with camping, with wilderness, and with the environment. And I can see how the meditation training makes him more attuned to the natural environment around him. And he also seems to have very good social emotional skills that, may have been somewhat inherent, but I think developed more fully because he had this background through our family.
I'd like to talk about your children's book published in 2023 called Goodnight Love, a Bedtime Meditation Story. The illustrations are wonderful. And of course, I love that it focuses on loving kindness meditation. I wonder if you can share your process of creating this lovely book with our listeners.
Well, I think you must be seeing you in this book because Sharon, this book is 100% here because of you. So, as I mentioned, when I was a teenager, I uh, went from the world of Zen meditation to the world of Vipassana, mindfulness meditation. And it was in that first retreat with you and several other teachers that I learned metta or loving kindness meditation. And I thought it was absolutely amazing then as a teenager. And it has been an invaluable tool or resource for me going into my adult years, especially around healing, healing from trauma, healing places of shame and low self-worth, and the rewiring that it provides both in the brain but also in the heart. It has been transformational for me. I knew early on that I wanted my young children to know how to do this practice because it's not only helpful for us internally, but it's also powerful in shaping strong, truly kind relationships and feelings of community. And so I was fortunate to have crossed paths with an older Dharma teacher named Gregory Kramer, who taught his young children his own version of loving kindness meditation. And his brilliant insight was that loving kindness meditation could be done as a bedtime story, that it would pair so nicely with a child's bedtime experience, and that it could serve as a beautiful transition from the work of the day, the play of the day, to resting and to sleep. And so, taking a cue from him, I started doing that with my children. Oh my goodness, they must have been maybe 2 and 4 years old when we started. And I simplified it a little bit, simplified the adult version and made it a little more imaginative. And we fell into a format that took, I don't know, maybe about 5 minutes every evening. And I often thought, oh, we could just skip it this evening, especially if we were traveling, or we were in a tent in the wilderness or in a hotel. I thought, oh, they don't want to do this. But they actually wouldn't even go to bed until we did this meditation. They demanded that we end with loving kindness meditation. So that was very gratifying to me. When I was teaching the Mindful Families of Durham in North Carolina, I also introduced parents to this way of meditating with their young children, and they went on to successfully be able to implement it at bedtime. I ended up writing an article for Tricycle magazine, and the editor came up with such a great title. He called it Goodnight Metta, after that old children's book, Goodnight Moon, which we still read. And then an editor at Bala Kids saw the article and thought it would make a terrific children's book. I couldn't really figure out how to do that.
Yeah.
And so she, along with a colleague, actually came up with most of the writing for Goodnight Metta, or actually it's called Goodnight Love. That's the ultimate title. And then I played around with it. But we were really having trouble with the ending. We couldn't figure out how to end it. And so I decided to read the manuscript to my now teenage daughter. I tried to picture her as a 7-year-old again. And so I read the book to her and came to the ending, which was not a great ending. And then it just suddenly came to me, and I turned to her and I said, "And now, little one, it is my turn to share my love for you. May you be healthy. May you be safe and protected. May you be happy and peaceful always and forever." And I gave my now teenage daughter a big hug. And then I got shivers down my spine. And I thought, yep, that's the ending right there.
Mm,
So that's how the book came to be.
so nice. If a parent or caregiver listening right now wanted to start their own Goodnight Love practice, what's one simple way they could begin? Maybe even tonight before bedtime.
Well, we'll be doing a guided version of this in this podcast, so they can listen to that and internalize it. But I think one of the quickest, simplest ways to begin is just to put one's own hand on the heart, or maybe a hand on the cheek, or one hand on the heart and one hand on your own cheek, and just say to yourself something like, "You are loved. You are doing your best." Or, "May I be happy. May I be peaceful." So give that to yourself, and then it will come naturally to give that to your children.
That's beautiful. So before we go on to the meditation, tell me what you're working on now and what's ahead for you.
Please don't laugh, but I am a huge fan of K-pop Demon Hunters, the animated feature.
I'm sorry for laughing. I've never seen it. But,
Oh, Sharon, you must.
okay, I'm going to go stream it.
You must. It is actually not a children's movie. It is a children's movie, but it is also not. The core theme is shame. How shame gets developed, how shame plays out in an individual's life, in their relationships, and in society. The ways in which shame, let's see, I forgot what I was going to say. The ways that people try to manage shame, and usually unsuccessfully, and then the real authentic ways of healing shame. And so once I realized that this animated feature, which I'm sure any parent or caregiver listening to this podcast, their little one has watched it and sings the songs by heart, fantastic songs, that this topic of shame, as developed in the feature, was an amazing way to talk about it with college students, because it's such a tender and tricky topic, right? And I didn't want to talk with Yale students about it directly. I felt people would shut down really quickly. So wonderfully, this feature has come along. And so we don't have to talk about shame directly. We can talk about shame in this animated feature. So that's what I'm preparing to do this Sunday with the students. So basically, what I'm working on these days is trying to develop programs for young adults so that they're continuing to develop their emotional fluency, to deepen in their spiritual practice. And I want to do topics that are vibrant and relevant, and that really set a young person up for a life of continued development and exploration.
All right, that's fantastic. So, would you like to guide us in a meditation?
I would love to do that. I feel a little self-conscious leading Sharon in a metta meditation, but
right.
We can edit that part out.
It's okay. I'll enjoy it very much.
All right. So what I'd like to do is the version of loving-kindness meditation that I did with my children. And if you follow along, perhaps you'll internalize it, and then you can do it with any children in your life later this evening. So, to begin, I welcome you to fully relax into the seat or the couch or the floor or the bed, wherever you are, and maybe pull the covers over your shoulders. If you have a blanket with you, get nice and cozy. And to help us relax a little more, we'll take a nice big breath into our bellies and fill up to the top of the lungs, and then letting the breath out and just letting go of all the stress and tension of the day. Let's do it one more time. Nice big breath in through the nose, fill the belly up to the top of the lungs, and exhaling, soften, relax, and just let yourself melt into whatever's holding you now. And I welcome you to bring your hands to your heart, one hand or both hands, and just provide some comfort to your heart area, some warmth. And breathe naturally, breathe into your heart. And if you like, you can imagine a warm light like the sun in your heart. And that warm sun is filled with kindness and care and safety. And we'll begin by practicing loving kindness for ourselves. So just think of yourself and maybe think of something you like about yourself, or maybe something kind you did today. It could be something really small, like you shared something with somebody, or you said something nice to them, made them feel better about something. And then with your inner voice, the voice in your head, you can wish yourself good health. So you can say this phrase, may I be healthy. May I be healthy. If you want, you can imagine your hand is giving you that good health and sending it through your body. And then we wish for ourselves safety and protection. Using that inner voice, may I be safe and protected. May I be safe and protected. And if you want, you can visualize like a shield around you or a force field that keeps you safe. And then we wish for ourselves happiness and peace. Using our inner voice, you can say to yourself, may I be happy and peaceful. May I be happy and peaceful. Perhaps your hand is sending that energy of happiness and peace into your heart, deep into your heart, and then it flows outward like a warm your body. And now we're going to extend our kindness to someone we care about. Just think of one person. Maybe it's someone in your family, a teacher at school, a neighborhood friend. Just think of that one person. Bring them to mind as clearly as you can. Maybe they're in their favorite place or place you know them well. You can smile at them. Maybe they smile back at you in your imagination. And we're going to share our love with them using our inner voice. Say to your friend, "May you be healthy." My dear friend, may you be healthy. Extending a wish to them for their safety and protection. May you be safe and protected. May you be safe and protected. And a wish for their happiness and their peace. My dear friend, may you be happy and peaceful. May you be happy and peaceful. And now we're going to radiate our kindness out into the natural world. So you can think of pets, you could think of animals like pandas, you could think of natural formations like mountains or rivers or the sky. Maybe for today, we'll do axolotls. These are very popular. So let's think of the axolotls in Mexico. A cute little creature. And wish for them that they are healthy. May you be healthy. May all the axolotls be healthy. May all axolotls be safe and protected. May all axolotls be happy and peaceful. We can imagine that their environment is healthy, there's enough food and water, sunlight, and they're safe. And then lastly, we'll extend our radiant loving kindness out to all beings. Maybe visualize your love as a light or an energy or a force field that expands outward from you, out into your house and beyond into the neighborhood, and out all over the world. So the whole world, all beings. May all beings everywhere be happy, healthy. May all beings everywhere be healthy. May all beings everywhere be safe and protected. May all beings everywhere be happy and peaceful. May all beings be happy and peaceful. And let's just rest and feel ourselves at rest, feeling our breath, feeling our body breathing in, breathing out. May all beings be happy. Thank you for joining me in that meditation.
Sumi, thank you so much for being here today. It's so inspiring to see what great work you're doing, and I thank you for sharing your wisdom with us.
I so enjoyed that. And again, I love this Kind Karl book. We must.
Thank you.
Yes, it's such a wonderful contribution for Mindful Families of Durham and for all the families out there who are looking for resources to help teach their children. And books like this are a wonderful third voice in that conversation, so that it's not the parent saying directly to the child, this is how to regulate emotions. We've got this storybook that helps both of them learn. So brava on the publication of this book.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Hey folks, thanks so much for listening. If you're still with us, you've reached the end of the podcast. So if you'd like to learn more about Sumi's different books and works, you can head over to our show notes and see the link there to find the different books that she has available. And of course, if you'd like to learn more about Kind Karl, Sharon's brand new children's book, you can visit SharonSalzberg.com. This has been the Metta Hour podcast, brought to you by the Be Here Now Network. May you be safe, may you be happy, may you be healthy, and may you live with ease.